Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, my two good friends, Tyson Snyder and Cale Fleming. On today's rundown, we need to talk about number 10 Penn State at the University of Illinois Fighting Illini. It was a close game up until the fourth quarter, and we'll discuss that later in the show. Then we're going to jump into the Atlanta Braves clinching the NL East. Then we're going to move on to Jimmy G. Buckets. We touched on a little bit on Friday. He requested a trade from the Minnesota Timberwolves. He wants out now. He wants out now, and he made that clear. And then we're going to finish up with some football. First, we're going to touch on the NFL, and then finish up with the Central Illinois High School football recap of our picks on Friday. But first, gentlemen, let's go ahead and go back. Let's talk about Penn State and Illinois. We touched on this on Friday as well. Kind of said that Penn State was kind of just going to walk away with this one, but I think through the first three quarters it was closer than what we expected, what a lot of people expected. Illinois actually came out with the lead there. The beginning, middle of the third quarter, took the lead 24-21. This surprised me. I know it surprised you, but Penn State ended up having the biggest fourth quarter I've ever seen, I think, in college football.
Just about.
35 points, 5 touchdowns. So what were you guys' takeaways?
Well, overall, I thought the game went really well. The first three quarters of football, they played outstanding. The end of the third quarter ended 28-24. Down 4 points to the number 10 team in the nation. Definitely can't complain about that. The fourth quarter was embarrassing. I don't really know what happened. The defense got tired. They forgot how to adjust and cover who they were covering. The offense stagnated, as Cale has been saying. But not only did they stagnate, they started turning the ball over. They started getting really bad field position. They started putting their defense in tight spots. So they kind of collapsed on both sides of the ball in the fourth quarter and gave up 35 points. Absolutely just nuts. But the first three quarters of the game, I was very impressed. Cale?
The first three quarters of the game, Penn State only scored 28 points. That's a win in itself in the entire game. If you're going by win-to-win basis during a game, the fact that they held a top 10 offense to 28 points in three quarters of football. Now we understand that in the fourth quarter they scored 35. So, yeah, the fourth quarter we unraveled, we fell apart. And part of the problem is that we have way too many true freshmen out on the field at all times. That's a big issue that we have all true freshmen. Now, I won't say all true freshmen, but a majority of true freshmen.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're playing true freshmen against a very stout offense that is very good, has a very good running game, and can throw with need be, that's an issue, because obviously freshmen haven't had as much time in a college weight room, a Power 5 weight room. There's a whole variety of, or a whole onslaught of issues that you have starting so many true freshmen. But the thing is that fourth quarter, it's just like they rolled over. They had an opportunity to win that game, and like Tyson alluded to, I don't know whether it's just because they ran out of gas or what, but they just rolled over and played dead. But the key player, in my opinion, I don't know about you guys, but the key player is again, I've been talking about him all season, is MJ Rivers. 17 for 28, 150 yards. He did throw one pick, but he did throw a TD. Although we can't discredit the amount of good things that Reggie Corbin and Mike Epstein did either. So
that's what I wanted to touch on, was the running back play from Illinois. This is a top 10 ranked team in the nation with a very good defense. Penn State's had a good defense the past few years now, and the fact that we were able to accumulate so many yards on the ground, I think speaks volume to what at least all of us have been saying, that we've had decent running backs, if not very good running backs for this year, which we really didn't have a bright spot for this team coming into it. We were really looking forward to the 2019 class coming in. But I think that, like you said, Corbin, Epstein, just
Rayvon Bonner too.
Yeah, all the running backs. I think, especially with this offensive line and what they've been able to do, because this is one of the lesser talented offensive lines that Illinois has had in the past decade. It's really been impressive to me, and I think that stands out the most to me. I do like that you mentioned MJ Rivers, though. He had a heck of a game, I think, against a top 10 team. I think this also will. I don't know if it'll pole vault Penn State over like a team like Wisconsin, but they didn't perform very well against Iowa, who is, I think, in a similar situation to Illinois in the way they've been playing this season. It'll be interesting to see how the rankings play out, but I think overall this was a pretty good performance by the Illini.
Yeah, I think the run game was phenomenal. You guys touched on it. Reggie Corbin and Mike Epstein both had a really good game. Corbin ran for almost 8 yards a carry, and Epstein ran for almost 6, 13 for 73. That's incredible. Those are NFL statistics. I'm not saying they're NFL caliber players, but those are NFL statistics. That is a great game by any means for any player. And I've been talking about it with some of the NFL running backs we've been talking about. How are these guys not getting more carries a game? Instead, they're splitting carries with Rayvon Bonner. MJ Rivers ran it 10 times. Robinson ran it 4 times. And they had a couple other miscellaneous carries and whatnot. They ended up running the ball 45 times that game, and those two only touched it 24 of them. The other 21 carries, if you put those in Reggie Corbin's hands, 20 carries times 8 yards is another 200 yards.
Even Epstein at 6 yards a carry.
6 yards a carry. That's a lot of yards. I don't understand how these guys aren't getting the ball a heck of a lot more. Still impressed with how they performed, but I think that's going to be a key moving forward is getting these guys the ball.
MJ Rivers carries the ball too much. He has to because his offensive line is the opposite of good. It's weak. I mean, you can't deny that fact. It's a weak offensive line. But MJ Rivers not getting any time to be able to throw to anybody when he doesn't have anybody to throw to begin with. That's another problem. But when you got your quarterback carrying the ball 10 times against a top 10 defense, that's an issue to me. I don't know about you guys, but to me it is.
Well, it is, and this speaks volume to MJ Rivers is because he's not a running quarterback. He's an athlete, but he's not a running quarterback. He's a pocket passer. And it's confusing to me because you kind of have to, I don't want to say change your entire offensive game plan, but you definitely have to change some factors because he's not A.J. Bush. A.J. Bush, excuse me. And when you insert Rivers into that kind of situation, your playbook obviously changes. But like Cale said, with that offensive line, if it breaks down, you got to run. And when you got to run, you got to run. But I wish that he would just focus a little bit more, maybe take another half second to keep his eyes down the field and watch for something to open up. I know he's missing Dudek out there, which is a big factor. He's done for the season. But you still have Ricky Smullen. I think that he is a really, really good receiver. I don't think that he's great. I don't think that he's average. I do think he's an above-average player. It's just going to be interesting because we're going to Rutgers in 2 weeks, and Rutgers is not a very good program right now. So with that said, maybe they can work in some more plays, maybe switch the system up a little bit to better suit Rivers and what his strong suits are. Maybe get the receivers more involved. Maybe go to what I alluded to last week and saying we need a more spread offense instead of this option crap that Lovey's trying to implement. I understand that he's in college, but that doesn't mean that you have to play into the college system. If you want to take some things from the pros and implement it at Illinois, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that if you have a guy that can throw the football.
I'm glad you said that because this coaching staff for the University of Illinois combined has 60 years of NFL experience. So why can't they – I don't get it. I agree with you playing this whole option offense. I don't understand it for the fact that why can't we just take the plays that these NFL caliber coaches know and implement them here? Now, I understand they're 18 and 19-year-old kids that may not want to run an NFL caliber offense, but at the same time, that's going to be hard for a Penn State defense or an Ohio State defense to adjust to, especially when we get the right pieces next season, 2019, on the field.
Well, I think I've got your answer, and I think the fourth quarter explains it. I don't think that these kids have the mental toughness to run that type of offense. We've been talking about it, how next year's recruits, the class of 2019, all these guys that really want to be here, all these guys that will do anything to win, all these guys that are super mental tough. But we saw in the fourth quarter of this game for this year's recruits, a lot of freshmen on the field, like you guys have been talking about, they fell apart, whether they were gassed physically or mentally or a combination of both. But I don't think that they could handle that type of offense. And I just say that because we gave up 35 points and couldn't move the ball in the fourth quarter. Even for a lot of the game, we were having a hard time moving the ball. But if you implement harder plays to run, more complicated plays, I just don't know if they have that mental fortitude or the will to run what you want to run.
And, hey, that's a fair point. We'll have to see how Illinois is able to bounce back in these next couple weeks going up against a caliber team of Penn State and then dropping to a Rutgers-level opponent. Both in the Big Ten still. It's still a Big Ten team, but obviously they've been in the lesser echelon. I can't say that word, but echelon? You know what I'm saying. That area is where Rutgers is at right now. But let's go ahead and let me shift gears to this. let's talk about the Atlanta Braves. It's been at least a couple episodes since we talked about the MLB.
I'm excited to talk about the MLB.
Absolutely, playoffs right around the corner. So the Atlanta Braves clinched the NL East. They have a current record of 88 and 68. This is a team that really pulled away from the Phillies when I think all of us, or the majority of us, thought that the Phillies would go ahead and take this division. That is absolutely not the case because we still have another week of baseball to play, and they've wrapped it up. So what are your guys' thoughts on the Braves and just that division in general?
Atlanta, I'm glad they clinched it. Although I do feel bad for Jake Arrieta, who's not having a very stellar second half of the year. After the All-Star break, Jake Arrieta's had an ERA in the upper fives. That's not a Jake Arrieta earned run average, honestly. But I also am going to give a lot of kudos and props to Theo Epstein for not giving him that $100 million that he wanted. But giving him the 100, though, there's also a counterpoint to that, giving the $100 million to a guy who's been on the DL since May 20th, and he's out for the rest of the year. But we can say this, though, is that Theo's baseball mind is superior because Darvish's ERA since the All-Star break has been a 0, and Jake Arrieta's been over a 5. So, there's that. I mean, it'll make a little fun about it. And try to make it lighter of a situation, I guess. But no, the Braves, they're solid. They've got a lot of pieces. Remember, they remind me of the 2016 Cubs, honestly, just for the sheer fact that they have the mix of older veteran leadership and guys like Freddie Freeman with the younger talent, star-studded talent, phenomenal players like Ozzie Albies. I was struggling to remember, trying to think of who I was going to name. But no, don't sleep on the Braves. They're going to be fun to watch this postseason. We talked a lot about the NL or the AL playoffs race. When we do talk about the MLB, the NL playoff races are going to be just as fun to watch as the AL. So I'm glad the Braves did it.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be a lot more competitive, but like you were saying, the Phillies kind of petered out and Atlanta just took off. Not really a run that either one of us kind of predicted, but they absolutely just took off. All their guys came together like they were playing at the beginning of the season when they got out to a huge lead. Then they fell off, but they're playing like they were in the beginning of the season form now here at the end, which is good for them. Usually you want to play in your mid-season form for the rest of the year, but they played well in the beginning. They're start strong, finish strong. That's what counts for them. So good on the Braves to make that push, clinch that spot. It'll make the playoffs a little bit more interesting, I think.
I do want to talk about Didi Gregorius. He was sliding into home plate, Saturday afternoon, I believe, Saturday night. He hurt the cartilage in his wrist, tore some of it. They don't think he's going to have surgery. The report was earlier on Sunday morning through Sunday afternoon was that he was going to end up missing the playoffs. Doubtful, done for the year, which is a massive blow to the Yankees because they're going to need Didi in that lineup for, one, his bat, and two, his defensive capabilities in order to beat the Athletics to move on. Because that's more than likely who they're going to end up playing for the wild card spot, which the Yankees did clinch the first wild card spot in the AL. But the fact that he may return now is the story we're getting, that he may not end up missing the postseason. He may end up missing this week and possibly the wild card game. But as you know, you got to win the wild card games in order to get into the playoffs. It's a play-in game. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Trevor Story for the Rockies is back, too, after missing this entire week. He was having some muscle cramping issues, I think, in his lower back. That's a big loss for the Rockies and big playmaker there at the shortstop position. But he's back. And Christian Yelich, man, that dude is tearing it up. He's hit for the cycle for at least twice this week for the Brewers, or twice in the last 2 weeks. And he just can't be stopped. That was an awesome trade to get Yelich from Miami to the Brewers. He's just done nothing but hit the ball all season for him. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. Excuse me. And I'm glad you mentioned the Rockies because this was a team that I was really high on about a month ago when we were talking about the NL West division with the Dodgers, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have plummeted off a cliff the past couple weeks. They're 8 games behind the Dodgers for first place, so they're essentially done. But the Rockies are still in it. They're only 1.5 games behind the Dodgers, a team you guys said would be pulling away about now. There's still a slim chance that Colorado could take home this division. Even if they do, they're looking at playing the Atlanta Braves in the first round or the second round of the MLB playoffs. What do you guys think? What matchup do you like more? Would you like to see the Dodgers with the Braves or the Braves and the Rockies?
I'd rather see the Braves than the Rockies because I don't want the Dodgers in the playoffs. Because if we make it that far as Cubs fans, Tyson and I, we know what the Dodgers can do and what they do to the Cubs. They give us a run for our money every year. So me personally, I would rather see the Rockies get some new faces in there. I'm tired of seeing the Dodgers in the playoffs. But I don't know. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. They're just like the Cardinals out there. They're going to get in. They get in somehow every year.
Yeah, I agree. I would much rather see the Rockies. The Rockies were the team that I picked to finish on top of that division when the Dodgers are going through that huge slump. They're game and a half back now of the wild card and of the Rockies, or
the Dodgers, right.
Yeah. But I would much rather see the Rockies. I know we can play well against them. The Dodgers, the Cardinals are traditionally teams that we struggle against, teams that are always kind of a thorn in the side. So I would much rather see the Rockies.
The Dodgers, though, they've got a pretty lax schedule. I'm going to say lax because that's what it is. They've got, starting tonight, they've got 3 games with the D-backs in Arizona. They got an off day on Thursday. Then Friday to finish out the season, they got a 3-game stint in San Francisco against the Giants. So they got a pretty moderately easy schedule to go up against.
Right. If you were going to pick one to take, I'm sure many teams in the MLB would take their schedule over their own, especially the Chicago Cubs, who have a very tough schedule. And dropping one to the Chicago White Sox was tough. That was tough. But
I don't even want to talk about it.
I know. Let me shift gears to this real quick. The Chicago Cubs have a 2.5-game lead on the Milwaukee Brewers. They've got, I believe, 6 or 7 games left.
We've got 4 with the Pirates and 3 with the Cardinals.
So
we've got 4 starting today with Pittsburgh.
Yep. Right, so 7 games left starting on the 24th of September. That is today.
30th is our last game at home against the Cardinals for the regular season.
So 7 games in 7 days to finish off the season. They've got 2.5-game lead. I mean, it's really what I want to get down to here is in the Central. If the Cubs hold on to the division, which we expect them to, it would essentially be Milwaukee and St. Louis in the wild card. Who would you give the leg up on in that game?
Oh, as of right now, I would have to give it to Milwaukee. I think St. Louis always plays better in that matchup between St. Louis and Milwaukee. But right now, I think the Brewers are a better team. They've been keeping up with the Cubs better than the Cardinals have over the last few weeks. And they've just been putting points up on the board. I think their offense is really hard to stop right now.
I'm going to go against him on that. I'm going to say the Cardinals just for the fact that they've got a bunch of flamethrowers and young arms in that bullpen, and in that starting rotation they have is tough. And
it's a one game scenario though.
Right.
Does the whole starting rotation really matter?
No, it does not. The starting rotation to me comes down to 2 people for the St. Louis Cardinals, and that's A, Jack Flaherty, B, Miles Mikolas. Do you throw Wainwright in there? No, because he's only pitched like 15 games this season. Although Adam Wainwright in the playoffs, we know what he's capable of. I'm just going to have to go ahead and go with the Cardinals just for the fact that Paul DeJong hits the snot out of the ball along with Yelich, Yadier Molina, and Jesus Aguilar. You know, Eric Thames, Big City, Matt Adams. That's going to be a good playoff game to watch. But I am going to side with the Cardinals.
All right, I'm going to have to stop you guys there because we need to save this for next Monday when we make our predictions for the playoffs. And it's going to be awesome to see how this all plays out. I know we're all looking forward to some playoff baseball. Go Cubs. I'm sad my Blue Jays have had such a disappointing season, but we'll see where they're at in a few years, and then we'll get back to that. But let me switch gears here to this. Let's talk about Jimmy G. Butler here, Jimmy G. Buckets. We know that on Wednesday last week, we reported on Friday that he requested a trade from Minnesota. With that said, he wants out as soon as possible. The Timberwolves went ahead and signed Karl Anthony Towns to a 5-year max extension. That pretty much sealed the deal on Jimmy Butler parting ways with the organization. But, Cale, I know you have some information on this, so let's go ahead and hear it.
So as of this morning, well, actually 3:55 p.m., it's 4:29 on Monday the 24th, so this was less than 35 minutes ago, Tom Thibodeau stated that he expects Jimmy Butler in camp if Wolves fail to trade him soon. But I did read a report last night, Gavin. I'm going to get your take on this because you're the bigger basketball guy out of the 3 of us, that Jimmy Butler wanted a trade to the Clippers, I think is what I read last night, by today. So
I know that the Clippers were at the top of his 3 teams. I know that it was between the Clippers, the Knicks, and the Nets. Surprisingly enough, I'm not sure why the Nets were on that list, other than they have a bunch of cap space at the end of the season in 2019. So if he's looking for the check and he's looking for a good teammate, I know that the LA Clippers were at the top of his list because he wants to be in Los Angeles, but he doesn't want to play with LeBron, so that rules out the Lakers. The Clippers, I think, have a young core. They have a lot of pieces, and they have their draft picks, most importantly. A lot of teams don't have their draft picks to part ways with in a trade. With that said, I think Jimmy Butler would be a great fit with that team, depending on what the Clippers are able to give up. I understand that DeAndre Jordan isn't there after signing with the Mavericks in the offseason. They traded away Blake Griffin last season to the Detroit Pistons. But you still have defensive-minded guys like Tobias Harris and Patrick Beverley. Even Marcin Gortat in his later years, he's still a viable option at the 5 position. They have a lot of good pieces. I know they drafted Gilgeous Alexander
Kentucky,
as well as the guy from Boston College whose name escapes me.
I can't remember.
And I can't remember his name right now. I think Jamal something, I believe, is his name. But they have 2 solid rookies. And I think if you're able to part ways with a draft pick and maybe a Patrick Beverley or maybe I know that they really want to keep Tobias Harris, but if they wanted to throw him in a first-round pick for Jimmy Butler, as long as you have Jimmy's verbal commitment to re-sign in the offseason, they're going to have enough cap space to sign someone else with Jimmy. They talked about Kawhi Leonard. That could be an interesting matchup if they were able to keep Beverley. You have the 1, 2, and 3 positions, all defensive caliber players. Kawhi Leonard being an MVP candidate most years. It's really interesting. It's an intriguing situation. I'm surprised that the Wolves let it get this bad before Jimmy pretty much demanded a trade. Not request, but demanded out of Minnesota.
Fact check, they drafted Miles Bridges from Michigan State, and then the point guard we were thinking of out of Boston College is Jerome Robinson.
Right, Jerome Robinson. And then they traded Bridges to the Hornets, right, for Alexander.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's a very intriguing situation, and we'll have to see if they actually follow through with this, because if they trade him quick, they're not going to get the best offer available because they know every team out there is biting for Jimmy Butler. I know I've seen reports that the Miami Heat and Pat Riley are interested. I've seen that Dan Gilbert and the Cleveland Cavaliers are interested. It's going to be really, really interesting to see where he falls.
So, switching off of Jimmy Butler, I sent this picture of what Kyrie's quoted, saying, because today's the NBA Media Day, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
So we have the NBA Media Day going on around. Everybody's taking pictures of new uniforms, getting acquainted with the teams because training camps obviously kicked off. So Kyrie Irving stated today, and quote, this is a quote from him stating, "There are times where I think about having number 11 in the Boston Raptors. Hopefully one day that's the dream." That makes me think right there, Gavin, that the whole Kyrie to the New York Knicks thing may not happen.
And, it very well may not happen, but I don't think you can ever count that out because LeBron also said that, when he came back to Cleveland that he wouldn't leave, or he wouldn't leave the first time. So I think anything is possible. We have players that say things all the time. Kevin Durant said that he didn't like superstars teaming up with each other, and look at him. He joined the Golden State Warriors with 5 All-Stars. So I appreciate what Kyrie's saying. I think that that's what the media wanted to hear, especially the Boston media. Boston fans should be very excited about that.
Boston Herald's going to be all over that.
I think the only reason he would stay is if they make it to the finals or they win. If he wants to run it back and try to repeat or make it back to the finals, ultimately against Golden State, let's be honest. I think really the only team he has to worry about now is the Toronto Raptors. I think Kawhi Leonard is that good. I think that their defense is going to be amazing. OG Anunoby has a year of NBA experience under their belt, and I'm really looking forward to that series whenever it may be. I know that they're also in the same division, so that they play 4 times a year, which is going to be really, really interesting to watch. I know I'm looking forward to it. As far as his quote, I think it just comes down to that's what the media wanted to hear. Whether I'm not in his head is what I'm trying to say. If that's really the way he feels, good for him. I'm really excited to see him and Gordon Hayward actually play
with Scary Terry and Jaylen Brown along with Horford.
Absolutely, just to see all of them come together. Let's not forget Marcus Smart, one of my favorite players on that team. It's just after that injury last year, I really thought this team was going to derail, and then we saw Jaylen Brown, Scary Terry, Jason Tatum.
I forget about Tatum too.
This team is stacked. This is probably the most stacked roster besides Golden State in the league.
About Philly,
I think Philly has about 4 guys, and then it kind of drops off. But
Cale Fultz, Ben Simmons, Embiid, Reddick he's decent still. He can shoot.
He's decent, but he's a role player. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
see him as a star or an
all-star
up and coming.
player, right.
Exactly. But no, it'll be interesting. If Kyrie wants to stay, he wants to stay. That's all I have.
So, you alluded to this. You think that the only competition for the Celtics is going to be the Raptors?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so what about Indiana and then Philly, as I just talked about?
What about Chicago?
Hang on. Before you answer this question, I saw something on Twitter this morning that stated that Chicago, they were talking about Lauri Markkanen, and they tagged the wrong Lauri Markkanen in it. And it's this dude that hang on, I can continue on. I'll find it.
Oh, like answering your question?
Yeah,
I think real quick, I think the Pacers are a very interesting team, mostly because of what they did in the offseason and adding a guy like Tyreek Evans at the 3 position, which was the weakest spot they had after losing Paul George. He had the best season of his career since his rookie season in Memphis. And I think adding a guy like that, if he can carry over his contributions that he had with the Grizzlies, this team can be very competitive, but I don't think that they have enough to beat Boston, to beat Toronto. I do think that they could be, at very best, I believe they could be the 3 seed if they're better than Philly. That's just all depends on where you think this team can fall. And as far as Philadelphia, I just think Boston has their number. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, Ben Simmons has been working on his jump shot, but he still can't shoot a lick. Embiid's a monster. Saric he's so-so. I wouldn't call him a star player, but he's a very, very solid guy. J.J. Redick coming off the bench, he can shoot threes. Markelle Fultz, if he can get his jump shot back. The team's on the rise. I mean, they made the 4 seed last year after having the worst record, or one of the worst records 2 years ago in the league. So Philly, even if you get bounced in the second round again, you got nothing to worry about because your team is solid. You're in the Eastern Conference, not as much competition. Just be satisfied.
If Philly even makes it, at some point they're going to have to play Boston. And if they were to, for whatever reason, get through Boston, they're going to have to play Golden State. And they're definitely not going to beat Golden State.
No.
They can't do that. But, no, we haven't talked about the MLB or NBA for a while, so I'm getting excited that it's getting kicked off. Before we transition to our next topic, can we talk about the Philadelphia Flyers' new mascot?
Yeah, I didn't catch his name, but I tell you what, Gritty.
Okay, so for people that haven't seen it yet, picture Justin Turner for the LA Dodgers, and that's it. It's a big man. It's weird looking.
I tell you what,
like the nightmare version of Big and Fuzzy.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what. I will put a picture of Gritty on the screen right now if you're watching, and just try to take this in of what we're looking at right now, because he is.
Or don't. It's probably better for you.
Yeah,
to don't
if
look at it.
children, I would.
If you have kids, please keep them away from your phone or your computer, whatever you're watching this on, because he is. He looks like the deranged orange Cookie Monster. That's the first thing. It's the first thing that I thought of when I was looking at this thing, and I said, "This is a mascot." I was thinking of the Condor mascot the Clippers came out with a couple years ago, and I thought that was creepy. And
this surpasses.
This is by far probably the worst one I've seen so far, and I don't mean that it's not creative, because they definitely got creative with it. But for someone that's supposed to be friendly and supposed to be all nice and cuddly and kind of promote the team, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, and thank goodness I'm not a Flyers fan, so I don't have to affiliate with this thing. But it is definitely interesting.
The mascots, I want to talk about that just for like 30 more seconds. Mascot wise, nobody beats Benny the Bull.
He's one of the best.
That is the
He's
best
one of the
mascot
best.
of all time.
I can't argue that. He is one of the best.
And when he hits, it's the whole antics of everything, just how he operates everything. Benny the Bull's the best. There's a whole highlight YouTube or a video of him on YouTube. Check that out. It's awesome. Benny the Bull's the best mascot ever.
I think one of my favorite ones is the Suns gorilla that they bring to every game. I don't know what it is about that guy, but whenever I see him, he gets me hyped for the game. Whatever he's doing, where he's sliding around on his stomach on the floor, or handing T-shirts out, and I don't know. He's a crazy guy. I love it. But let's go ahead and move on from Gritty. I'm sure you guys have already been scarred enough for one episode, so let's go ahead and transition to the NFL. Had a couple wild games, or really a handful of wild games over the weekend. The first one I want to talk about, Cale, you and me, the Chicago Bears, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This game was ugly, to say the least. The Bears went down early in the first quarter, 14-0. Ended up coming out on top, 16-14. The Cardinals couldn't put it in the end zone or get a field goal again. Cardinals had 4 turnovers on the day, or before Josh Rosen came into the game. And he threw another pick and ended with 4 total. I think Bradford had 2 and Rosen had 2, and then the forced fumble. The forced fumble by Sam Bradford. Again, Khalil Mack. That's really what it comes down to. 3 forced fumbles, Cale, in 3 straight games. How much of an impact has Khalil had on the Chicago Bears defense?
He's taken an average defense turned into an above-average defense. There's no reason why I'm not being biased as well included. There's no reason why the Bears defense should not be ranked in the top 5. Right up there with Minnesota, in my opinion, although Minnesota's defense had a very big lapse. We'll talk about that in a second. But there's no reason why, with adding Khalil Mack, with Akeem Hicks, Prince Amukamara, Kyle Fuller, I know you don't like him, but even then, Eddie Jackson.
Young, he's still working.
Talk about Eddie Jackson, and we can talk about
Trevathan.
Adrian Amos, Trevathan, of course, Roquan Smith, Eddie Goldman. I mean, you got all of these guys on this defense.
This is honestly the best defense I have seen since which I'm not a very big football fan, so I haven't watched very much football in my life. But until about this year, this is the best defense I can remember seeing.
Since I believe since we went to the Super Bowl and we had Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs,
right,
Peanut Tillman. I mean, those guys. You're right. This is probably the best team we've had, defensively speaking.
I think this defensive team is better than that team.
I think that we're better at multiple positions.
Right. I don't think it's very top-heavy. You've got your great corner in Peanut. You've got your great linebackers in Briggs and Urlacher, and then you've got everyone else that kind of fills the holes. Mm-hmm. I think you've got so many more guys on this defense. You've got Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and your whole secondary. It's not just Peanut. You got linebackers to back them up, Danny Trevathan. All these guys. The scary thing for me in this game was the Cardinals almost found a way to block Khalil Mack and take him out of the game for most of it, and he still found a way to get 2 sacks and force a fumble.
Yep,
that's terrifying for just about everybody. If you have to play the Bears, I mean, what can you do to stop that guy?
I mean, yeah, they were doubling him on most plays, sometimes triple teaming, absolutely. But you noticed, I don't know, for whatever reason, in the third quarter, they left him one-on-one with that right tackle, and every single time it was a bull rush straight to the quarterback, whether it was pressure, whether it led to an incompletion, or that fumble that we saw when Bradford tried to run. That was hilarious. It's just it's astounding to me that Gruden let this guy go. And I know it's been 4 weeks, but I can't.
Says he can't find a pass rusher.
I know. I can't fathom. I really can't.
Well, you know what's stupid about that? You said he bull rushed almost every play, and he did. But he's got like 14 different bull rushes.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. They were describing him as gelatinous.
That was funny.
Which I didn't quite understand until I was like, Jell-O is wiggly and it does the same thing but different every time. I'm like, well, that actually does kind of work because he does the same thing. He bull rushes you, but he makes it look like a spin move or a swim move or something else, or he'll fall down and get up and just destroy you. And it's a bull rush after bull rush after bull rush, but it never looks like he's just coming straight at you. He's an absolutely outstanding player to watch. I almost feel bad for Gruden, but then again, that's kind of funny that he let him get away like that because he let his head think more than he was supposed to, I think, on that one.
Yeah, there's about 100 million reasons in his head, too.
Yeah, why he should have kept him. The only good thing that happened in that trade is that there's a possibility that you could get another Khalil Mack or a player better than Khalil Mack, which that
doesn't look likely.
Not likely,
now.
But they have the Bears' first-round draft pick, and they have their own first-round draft pick in 2019 and 2020. With their move to Las Vegas, I think that whatever young gun is going to go to the Raiders, I think that's the only bright spot that they have because when we made our predictions and we both agreed that the Raiders could go 10-6, that was with Khalil Mack on the roster.
Yeah,
they'll be lucky. They'll be lucky to win 5 or 6 games.
I also picked the Bears to go 6-10 without Khalil Mack, so.
Right,
I'm taking a little bit of grace on that one, too.
We could even, granted, I don't know if they'll win 10 games, but they're on the top of the division right now, 2-1.
Woo!
You could flip-flop those records, and you could probably be right, or at least in the ballpark. I was just really impressed with this defense, how week after week, it seems that they're improving. The one thing that was discouraging is that Mitchell Trubisky, he looked like he regressed in this game.
Yes.
And that was a big red flag to me. I thought he played really well against Green Bay. Thought he played even better in week 2 against I can't even remember who they played.
Seattle.
The Seattle Seahawks. Yeah,
Monday Night
I
Football.
thought that he played even better against them, and I just was like, wow, really? The Arizona Cardinals, 0-2, and they allowed plus 20 points in their first 2 games, and you only threw 1 touchdown. It's stuff like that. He had a couple plays to Allen Robinson and Trey Burton that I was really impressed with, but there was more ugly than good things to watch in that game. But
Mitch actually did not throw a touchdown in this game.
Mm-mm.
Oh, he didn't.
No,
That's right.
Jordan
He got
Howard
stopped
ran
at
it
the.
in.
He stopped
Yeah.
at the 1.
And then they kicked a few field goals on top of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you know the play I'm referring to then.
Right,
Allen
right,
Robinson. I should have been a touchdown.
Yep.
Or it was Tariq Cohen. Excuse
Yeah.
me. He got tackled at the 1-yard line. Just more bad plays than good ones. That's what I took away from Mitchell Trubisky. I was happy to see Jordan Howard getting more touches this game. Did he have more than 14 carries?
He had 24.
24 carries. So there we go.
24 for 61, not quite the average we were looking for, only 2.5 yards a carry. But we saw what happened when they fed him. The
Right.
ball kept moving, whether it was 2 yards, whether it was 1. Now, take that with a grain of salt because a lot of those carries were on 3rd and 1 situations or goal line situations where he only has to get 1 yard. And he's only going to get 1 yard. So that took his average down a little bit. But we see what happens when you feed the beast. When you give him 24 carries, you win a game. You come from behind, you move the ball, you consistently get first downs, and you win a game. So
that was the more impressive thing was the defense shutting the Cardinals down for the next 3 quarters after giving up 2 touchdowns in the first.
They didn't score again.
No, that was the most impressive thing to me.
I didn't think we were going to score again either, to be honest.
No, and I was right there with you. I know when they went down and kicked the field goal and made it 14-3, I said, well, we're not going to win kicking field goals all day.
So I want to know something. Matt Nagy, this is his first season in the NFL, correct?
As a head coach, yes.
As a head coach, this is his first season in the NFL. So there was a play on 3rd and 1. He ran his offense out there to try to draw the defense off sides. Burned a timeout, and then sent his kicking unit on.
Yeah.
In the 4th quarter. Why?
No, that was
The 4th and
before
1.
halftime.
Yeah, before halftime, but it was the 4th and 1.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, what's the point of even burning a timeout then?
Well, because they called the timeout to draw up a play, to decide on what play they wanted to run, how they thought the Cardinals defense was going to come out, because they were going to go for it. After that, the Cardinals called a timeout because they didn't like the way they set up for how the Bears set up. So instead of messing around with it and trying to re-pick a play and now possibly losing because Arizona has a better setup, he decided to just kick it. Now, I still don't agree, 4th and 1 from the 1. Still should have gone for it. You're down 14 points. You need some points. But then again, you need some points. So I believe that's why he made that decision, because if Arizona would have stayed in the formation they were in, they would have ran their play. They would have did whatever. Since the Cardinals called that timeout, I think he rethought it and didn't want to be underprepared for the situation anymore.
Well, and also, if they don't get those 3 points, they don't win this game because then they're forced to
Right.
get a touchdown late, which
The way Mitchell played yesterday was not impressive.
It wouldn't have happened, no. And looking at it in hindsight, I'm glad that they took the points. I know that they say when the points are presented, take them.
Right.
Even if you're a gambler like Nagy is. But I thought he had a couple questionable play calls yesterday as well. I believe it was either 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, and we were on like the Cardinals 40-yard line or 45, and he did a draw play to Jordan Howard right up the middle, got a couple yards, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you doing? You're down in the game. I don't think this is where you want to be, and you don't want to have to kick like a 48, 50-yard field goal with Cody Parkey. Although he is accurate, outside of 50 yards, he's very shaky, and we saw that because he missed a 48-yarder yesterday. But with that said, let's talk about one more game here. We need to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. This is a game that we thought that the Cowboys would pretty much win handily after that performance against the New York Giants. Dak Prescott looked, I hate to say it, Tyson, but abysmal in this one. I believe you said 12 completions on how many attempts?
It was better than that. But
19 for 34.
Yeah,
19 for 34, so
He got sacked 5 times.
just over 50% on the
that
completion
was
rating.
the surprising stat to me, getting sacked 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that offensive line. And then Zeke averaging 8 yards a carry, you said?
7.9,
So
pretty darn close. 16 carries for 127 yards.
And that's the key point, is he only got 16 carries.
Yep.
You talked about this last week, too.
I've said this for 3 weeks straight. Before we started the season, I said Zeke needs over 20 carries. If Zeke gets 20 carries, he gets over 100 yards. They've lost one game
Ever.
in that span, ever.
Yeah.
Since Zeke's been on the team. I said that before week 1. After week 1, I said the same thing. He only had 14 carries. Okay. After week 2, I said the same thing. He had 16 carries again in week 2.
And they barely beat
the
Giants.
Won by a touchdown.
Yeah.
They give him 16 carries again, and they lose. It's not just about the carries for Zeke. It's about getting the ball out of Dak's hands. He had enough of the pressure last year, being the only player for several games, having to throw, make plays happen. I think he's still in that mode now. He still wants to make things happen, and to get him out of that mode, he's slowly regressing each and every week. His first season was great. His second season, we saw a step back. This season, he's going steps back a game at a time instead of a season at a time. And to get some of that pressure off of him, to make him stop making some of those bad throws, you got to give Zeke the ball. And I've been saying this for almost a month now. I just don't understand how they can't fit that into the game plan to run him the ball 20, 25, 45 times if it takes it. 45 carries at 8 yards a carry. I understand it's not going to be 8 yards a carry if you hand it to him that many times. But you get what I'm saying. He's still going to be, if you run the ball every play and you get 4 yards on every play, after 3 plays, you've got a first down every time. And a first down means you can go the length of the field and score a touchdown. So I don't understand. It was a really rough game to watch, to keep up with. One positive note I'll take out of this, Dak threw 2 interceptions. Dak threw 2 interceptions to
Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas in his post-game interview said that he had a couple of the Cowboys coaches come up to him before the game, said, "Hey, are you ready to be traded after tomorrow?" After Monday night. So hopefully that means we can get him on the team. Now, defense, I still don't think is the problem, even though they let up 24 points.
Earl Thomas definitely helps that.
But, yeah, Earl Thomas gave them the ball once on, like, the 25-yard line, so it's pretty easy to score from there. Then he gave them the ball and stopped a touchdown drive for the Cowboys.
So that's net 14 points.
Right, exactly. Right. Positive, hopefully we can get Earl Thomas. Now, once again, like I said, defense really isn't the problem yet. I guess the other thing that surprised me is we only got 2 sacks on Russell Wilson, where both of the previous games he had been sacked 6 times.
So we had 6.
The Bears had 6
sacks.
and the Cardinals had 6 in week 1, or whoever they played, or Denver.
Denver did.
Denver had 6 sacks when they played in week 1. And the Cowboys only came out with 2, and defense has been our strong suit by far.
One thing I want to touch on with the defense, though, was Randy Gregory?
Yeah.
He had a personal foul in yesterday's game that was – it's just a bonehead decision because then it's 15 –
It turned into a touchdown.
It's 15 free yards that puts Seattle that much closer, which they didn't end up scoring on. Now, we know Jerry Jones likes to go for these guys that are really talented that have, I'll say, issues. Mm-hmm. How do they keep this in check? Because if you're giving up penalties like that when you're already trying to climb back in the football game, I mean, it's that much harder to do it, and it almost becomes near impossible.
Well, I think Jerry Jones gets these guys, but he expects so much more, and I think the team and the coaching staff does a really good job at handling that. We saw Gregory throughout the rest of the game very calm. He got talked to by several of the players, a couple people from the coaching staff, and I think they shut down anything that could have turned into. Which Randy Gregory of the past, he got that foul, he gets pissed, he goes out, he gets 3 more fouls and gets ejected. So I think the team does a good job of holding each other accountable, unless it comes to scoring the ball and then no one's accountable for anything because we just can't do it. But
Right. All right. Well, sticking with football, let's go ahead and switch to our last topic here. Our Central Illinois High School football picks that we made on Friday for Week 5. Those are in, and Tyson has the results, so go ahead and take it away.
all right. So our first game we talked about was Central against Richwoods. Central ended up taking that one. We all picked that one right, 28-17. We said Richwoods had lost to Centennial earlier in the year. So an easy win for Central. Not as far apart as we would have liked it, but that's all right. Our next game up was PBL against Moments. Gavin hopped on the PBL train towards the end there.
I had to. You guys convinced me.
We also pointed out Moments is not the team of the past that they have had. PBL took this one in a landslide, 49-7. Absolutely shut them down. the offense went nuts. Our third game of the week was Danville against Thornwood. Like we talked about this, none of us really know anything about Thornwood, so we went with the hometown team. Danville won at 19-0. Bloomington against Urbana. Cale finally hopped off that Urbana train. Thank God, because they lost again, 47-12. Urbana now 0-5 on the season.
Yep.
Not a good look. But this was the first game we actually had a little bit of differentiation on. STM against Rantoul. Gavin went with Rantoul. Unfortunately, they lost 50-38.
Yeah, a lot closer than a lot of people would have picked though, or thought. I was really impressed with Rantoul being able to put 38 points up on a team that's really on the rise this season. I don't think a lot of people figured the Sabres would have a 3-2 record up to this point.
No, the Sabres were 1-8 last year, I think, so automatic improvement. But you're right, 38 points from Rantoul is very, very impressive. Our next game was Watseka against Dwight, Gardner South Wilmington. A little bit of a letdown. They lost 6-23. Dwight, I think that's their second win of the season now against a good Watseka team.
That's because me and Tyson picked Watseka.
Yep.
Yeah, get off my team's bandwagon, man. This is mine.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a letdown. We all took the L on that one. Our next game was Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond against Tri-City
something.
Yeah, something or other.
I just put Tri-City on there.
They won.
All won. It was 34-15. Game we didn't really know a whole lot about again, but we all picked the right direction. Excuse me.
Man, we're all dying in here.
Yeah, it's a little too much talking, man.
My
We're not ready
throat
for
got
it.
a little weird. And then this game was a little surprising to me. Normal West against Peoria. A week ago, Peoria tied Manual 0-0. This week they came out against Normal West and lost 33-32. Lost by 1 point to a really good team who's now 4-1 on the season. But yeah, we all took the win on that one. Normal West coming a little bit closer than we expected.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Cumberland was our next game. Gavin unfortunately went with the wrong team again on this one. Villa Grove Heritage he picked to win, but Cumberland took it 48-20. Cale and I got that one right again. And this was the only game of the week that Cale and I differed on. Pontiac against St. Joe. Cale, you care to elaborate?
St. Joe lost.
Yep, okay, there you have it. St. Joe lost 42-20. Pontiac's looking really, really sharp so far this year.
They beat a good team.
They beat a really good team.
Yeah, though they're a good team, just Pontiac's better. That's what it came down to. Yeah.
Pontiac's now one of the few undefeated teams left in Central Illinois.
Yeah, but me and Tyson alluded to this on Friday, is that St. Joe's schedule, it really wasn't the hardest one in the world. It was really lackluster.
Right. And that's why we went with Pontiac. We figured they had beaten tougher competition.
They still put up 20 on them, although St. Joe let up 42.
Right.
Still positive to the negative.
Yes, there is, but it comes down to that I gained a game back on you, and that's what counts, because I took a lot of L's this week, as I usually do, because I try to pick some outliers. But hey, what can you do? Positive record's a positive record. That's what counts.
For the week, I was 9-1. Cale was 8-2, and Gavin was 7-3. So we actually had a pretty competitive week this week.
This is the first week I haven't tied or won, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Tightens up our gap a little bit here, so it'll be interesting moving forward.
You got the totals on there?
Okay, so the records have tightened up a little bit. Cale's still in the lead at 39-11.
Woo!
I moved up into second last week, pulled ahead by another game or so this week. I'm at 33-13. I put 3 instead of 13. And Gavin regressed a little bit, 34-16. Still close, though, still competitive. We'll see how it turns out towards the end of the year.
I just want to point out that I'm 39-11. I never thought that would happen. I've picked some great upsets this year. That's all I'm going to say.
And you would also have 4 more wins if you wouldn't have taken Urbana.
My high school football knowledge is through the roof.
Pro.
I got nothing else to say. On that note, we're going to go ahead and end it here today. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe down below by hitting that big red button and hit the bell icon next to it so you don't miss a beat. Also, don't be afraid to leave us a comment. Tell us how we did, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. All comments are welcome. With that said, though, my name is Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming, and we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Based upon the view, you can't have too much trouble, so why can't we do it? everybody's doing it. Let's light the fireworks, stand back and enjoy it. Oh, oh. Bomb to